Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. At this point, we should already all know this beautiful ride. It's just your average dark ride, your average Omni-Mover dark ride, themed off of Buzz Lightyear battling against the evil Emperor Zurg. But did you know that there was more history behind this? So come with me as I show you the history of Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin and Space Ranger Spin alone. Not Astro Blasters, not Tokyo Astro Blasters, not Hong Kong Astro Blasters, not Laser Blast, and not Planet Rescue. Just this ride by itself. We'll start our journey through the history with If You Had Wings. This ride what was before Space Ranger Spin ever came along. It's basically the same Omni-Mover ride as Space Ranger Spin, because it's the exact same thing. Who would have thought? It's basically just traveling around the world. Listen, I don't know much history about this. I'm only going into the depth I got. Yeah, and back in the day, this ride never even had the lasers. It was basically just a ride. It's basically just one of the. It was basically just a ride that you just. It's basically a ride you'd ride in, and you'd have like all these scenes. Not a single animatronic in this ride back in the day. And yeah, that's basically If You Had Wings. But there were some changes coming along the way. A couple years later, it would be turned into Delta Dreamflight, sponsored by Delta. Who other else? And they basically, it was a big refurb of the entire ride. Basically an entire, and you would get on board. It was still the same Omni-Mover or esque ride. Except now, most scenes are 3D, been 3D effects. And it's basically a ride into the history of, it's basically the history of flight. Sort of like that. It's sort of like a little history of flight and how we got there to this day. And yeah. Shortly after, though, it would have been turned into, it would simply just be Just Dreamflight, and their sponsorship with Delta would have ended. But they still kept the same soundtrack, the same scenes, and all whatnot. But another refurb was going to be in the making after this. The ride would then take another name of Take Flight. All the Delta sponsorings with Dreamflight had all been stripped off, and it was basically the same ride. all the scenes were the same. Basically, all the scenes were like the same thing. Nothing really has changed. Not much. Not much had changed. Yeah, just not much has changed, and it was basically just the same ride. But however, they were going to take some changes in the future. In 1988, the ride was refurbed entirely as what we know today as Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, in which they took away all the aviation-esque elements and replaced them with Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear-like scenes. So when you enter the queue, you get to see like lots of things. You get to see the map of the Gamma Quadrant. You get to see like all the pressure gauges that say dangerously low, and they all go connected into the crystallic fusion power cells. You can see that they're very low on power because the evil Emperor Zurg is taking them to power his secret weapon. He would continue to traverse through the queue until you came face to face. Well, not face to face. I'll get onto that in a little bit. You get to see like all the control panel, some robots stealing batteries, the aliens, and much more. Even this with the picture of the Star Cruiser and how it works. Then you'd come face to face. Then you'd come face to face with a pretty cool Buzz Lightyear animatronic, with his helmet on and his wings extended. He had a screen projected face, and he also had this Viewmaster that would change screens which would sync into what Buzz is saying. And there's even alarms all around the queue, which, just like the Viewmaster, syncs up with what Buzz is saying. And they would flash rapidly. And they even went the further mile to have like the flashing on the projected face on the animatronic. Then you'd enter the boarding area with the Star Cruisers. You see this giant picture of Buzz Lightyear fighting off the robots with evil Emperor Zurg. At the Star Cruiser maintenance bay, you got the blasters, which were mounted onto the vehicle back then. And this is where you'd start your journey. So you'd enter the room. Your thing is starting to boot up. You come by the Astro Accelerator with this disco ball that would spin around and making it look like you're traveling through space. And then you enter the robot room with these two giant robots. One on this side is the Gigantobot with 4 arms, including a magnet, scissors, a claw, and a buzzsaw. And the other is the Boxobot, which was originally called the Rock'em Sock'em droid. They changed the name of the Boxobot to what it is due to copyright reasons with Mattel, since the Mattel originally sponsored the ride, but it was short-lived. But that sponsorship was short-lived, and yeah. Before I continue on, this ride contains a high score of 999,999. And there are specific targets that were scattered around on each room, so you'd get a big whopping amount of points. And I'm gonna go through, and I'll go through them every time I'm done with one of the rooms. So when we enter the Robo Attack room, there are specifically 2 areas where you need to shoot. The first area is the palm of the Boxobot's left hand, and I'll give you 100,000 points. The second one in the room is the Gigantobot's claw. You hit that and it'll also give you 100,000 points. The Boxobot will be a hard one because his arms are constantly going up and down. So it's going to be a tricky one to get that, but and the Gigantobot's claw is going to be another hard one because you have to turn the thing around to shoot it. And once you're leaving it in the robot room, you see some robots next to the Boxobot. Then you'd enter Planet Z. You encounter a whole lots of monsters like goo worms, a giant eyeball, a pterodactyl, a crab, a snake, a green monster, even some monsters that are just painted onto the wall, like a spider, a 3-headed monster, and a monster with 4 mouths. You see an alien being attacked by 2 other monsters, and then you encounter, and then you see some of these chickens, which are actually taken from the original Delta Dream Flight. And then you have this piranha monster and this plant monster chasing a small alien pig. And you also have this volcano with a dinosaur standing next to it. Got 2 other goo worms. And this little blue monster that would pop up every once in a while. And then you'd have the alien in a box. And then you'd enter the 3rd room. Now, in terms of high scores, you're gonna want to aim for the top of the volcano, which will cause it to erupt, and it'll give you 25,000 points. You can also even shoot the alien in a box, the door, when it opens. It might give you another 25,000, but I'm not sure. Then you enter Zurg's lair, and he has this giant robot that's dispensing all the batteries, which all have a target, and when you shoot one of them, they would collapse to the ground, but they would retract. Then you'd encounter Zurg himself in his giant spaceship with spider legs, a chainsaw, a claw, a rocket launcher, a satellite, and a giant laser. And he has 2 robot henchmen powering up his ship to get ready to take over the galaxy. And now for another tip, you'd want to aim for the target located at the bottom of Zurg's ship, and it will give you another 100,000 points. And that after you pass Zurg, you see some of the aliens escorting some of the power cells out. Then you enter the emergency escape hatch, and then you come face to face with a red light, which is this red light, which was actually a which was originally a jet turbine in the original Delta Dream flight. Then you enter the screening room. You see Zurg firing his lasers and trying to defeat you. And you have these lasers shooting back at him and would go flying across the screen. And then we just have one more room after this. The final room, you lose control of your spinning to snap a picture. And now you get Zurg, and now you have Zurg's secret weapon falling apart. The legs are falling off, the dome on the top is falling off, the rocket shot off, the satellite snapped off, all the legs are coming off, and you got Zurg shaking his fist. Right behind you, you have Buzz Lightyear shooting a laser, which actually light up and it would shoot on his chest. And Zurg now is equipped. Zurg's ship is now equipped with two cannons on both sides that would flashbang you and snap your picture. Now, if you know me, I've been on this ride, and every time it flashed, I always tried to close my eyes because I didn't want to go blind, but I knew it wouldn't happen, so I just continued doing it as it was. And here's another fun fact. In the original ride, well, not the original ride, when it first opened, the cannons weren't added. They didn't snap pictures back in the day. And now in present day, you actually have the cannons that would shoot, and they would flashbang you to get a picture. After you went through the entire room, after you exit that room, which another high score tip is to blast the bottom of Zurg's ship again, and it'll give you I don't know, like 100,000 points, I think. You pass by some of the aliens saluting you as they're holding their batteries, and you got Buzz saluting you as you defeated evil Emperor Zurg as he is hanging on a claw. This Buzz animatronic, he also has a projected face, but he has limited movement. He only has he can only move his head, and he can only move his arm. And that's basically all he can do. And then you come face to face with the score counter, and then that's it. That's the ride. Now, as time went on, Space Ranger Spin has been kind of showing its age a little bit. And in 2021, they put bright lights on the Buzz Lightyear animatronic so he can be more light instead of dark. I prefer it being dark because it makes it look more dramatic. Not to mention that the cracks on Buzz's arms are actually more noticeable, and even some of his arms sometimes either one part of his arm would just lock up, and the others would just continue to move. Or even his face would probably get all blurred up. And usually a curtain would go over the animatronic so they can do some maintenance on him. Some other things that kind of go wrong are like the Boxobot's arms locking up, causing him to just not have his arms move at all. And even Zurg's voice being all muffled up in the final battle scene. You would think that this would be the end of Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, but it wouldn't. But in August 15th, that's where the original ride closed for a refurb. And that's where Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin 2.0 would come into play. They redid the entire entrance from the ground up. Now the sign is now outside in the open, and there's Star Command logos, and there's really nothing else left of the old entrance. And then the queue, it's basically the same as the original. It's basically the exact same thing as the original. You see all the different stuff. You get to see all the remaining things that were on the original ride remained as they were. However, there was a big change. As you can tell, there was a change in the soundtrack. The old soundtrack will forever be missed. But this makes it a little more dramatic. And another part is the part where you come face to face, where you're briefing with Buzz Lightyear. Now Buzz has brand new dialogue that he's actually voiced by Tim Allen. Isn't that cool? And I just want to say, he sounds so much better. However, in some of the dialogue, they changed a little bit of his dialogue up, and it only kind of sounds weird when and they kept the original projected face, so the changed dialogue would not sync up with his mouth sometimes. Also, the alarm sound is so weak. It doesn't sound like a good alarm that gets you up and at 'em. Also, the screen on the Viewmaster have completely changed, and it's all 2D, which I think is a beautiful change. It makes it look so much better. Then you'd enter. Then after you're finished briefing the mission with Buzz, you are then you see the new ride vehicles, and you see the giant screen with Buzz Lightyear fighting the robots have changed with the new ride vehicles. The vehicles now have new handheld blasters, which matches all of the other rides, but has the same sound effects and mechanics as Planet Rescue. The Astro Accelerator is now done for, and instead replaced by a new original character for the ride called Buddy. And she's here to help you train and test your blasters with some targets she's got in her hands. Her body would sway from side to side. And yeah. And now the scores have changed. Now, if you're wondering what the scores would be, you'd think they'd be in the original spots, but you'd be wrong. As you see, these are new targets, new interactive targets that would light up and indicate when you hit them. Like, if you have the red blaster, it would flash red. If you had the green blaster, it would turn green. So in the first room, nothing really has changed except the targets, of course. And however, the Boxelbot's arms are like way down to his hips. And he moves his arms as slow as molasses. But he still moves them. But then later after, they just locked up as per usual. The Gigantobot, its flashing is now constant. And yeah. Then you enter Planet Z. The pterodactyl is now spins in circles constantly and doesn't stop. All the monsters that pop up would just stay up there for just a split second and just retract. The painted monsters on the walls are still there to right now, and some of the other monsters that do actions like don't move, but they still would play an important part. Then, after you went through, and also to give you a little context on the new targets, you'd see how like some of them would even like have a white border around them. That would probably give you some extra points, which would be good in the long run. But the ones you really have to look out for are these rainbow targets, which are just simply a quick time event, and their borders would just go like a timer, and you have to shoot them as many times as you can to get a good score. Then you'd enter Zurg's lair. The targets in the batteries targets are no longer on there, and now they're just there. Zurg has new dialogue, so he makes it sound more accurate to the movies. Nothing really has changed with Zurg, but there's a new scene that comes right after him. So when you enter the emergency escape hatch, you actually have an alien opening and closing it so you can set off on your battle to fight evil Emperor Zurg. The emergency escape hatch, which is also different, as it's not now, instead of a light, it's just like a little exit to get out of Zurg's lair. Another big change would come after this. As you would see, it's now all 3D, and this time you actually have Buzz Lightyear helping you defeat him. And Zurg would shoot drones, and it would even have a target at the back of his head. He would shoot drones, and you can shoot them, and they would explode. The final room is nothing different. You still get flashbanged. Zurg's still shaking his fist. They all still have different dialogue. Buzz's white spots look more brighter to make him look more accurate. Then when to enter the final room where Buzz thanks you. His white spots have been also brightened up to make him look more accurate. And also, once the ride ends, you would get the score and what your rank is. And did I mention that they also changed up the scoreboard? Yeah, they changed the scoreboard. And now instead of 999,999, you need 1 million. Yeah, 1 million points to be a galactic hero. I was disappointed to say goodbye to the old ride, but I knew they were doing in the refurbishment. I just didn't want them to change it to the point where it's a completely different ride. But anyway, this was one of my favorite rides, and I highly recommend it. Hell, I'll probably even ride it for myself. I'll even ride the new one for myself the next time I go to Walt Disney World. But we'll see where the road takes us. It'll probably even just take us to infinity and beyond.